A little boy shivered through the whole night outside, but his rich dad didn't even notice. Finally, when his dad came out, the boy got up and begged him to save his sick mom. He thought he had a chance, but his dad didn't care about his ex-wife at all. He was in a hurry to go on his honeymoon with his new wife. To get rid of his son quickly, he actually handed them a big check and told them to take care of themselves. Then, he shut the car door without a second thought. The boy called out in the rain, unable to believe that the dad who used to love him so much would now throw him and his mom away for a new wife. In that moment, the boy felt completely hopeless. The boy, once again without a home, returned to the place that haunted him with painful memories. He had only one goal: revenge. He would make everyone who hurt his mother pay a terrible price. His first target was the woman who had stolen his father away years ago. But the woman had become a wealthy businesswoman and was now the vice president of his father's company. Poe, knowing her schedule, disguised himself as a bar waiter and prepared a special drink for her. Seeing a handsome young man in front of her, Netzalau lowered her guard. She had no idea that Poe was the little boy she had kicked out 10 years ago. She even started talking to Poe in a familiar tone. "I thought you wouldn't understand me because of our age difference." Poe replied, "You look so young, I almost called you little sister." With only one sentence, he made Net really happy. Then she tried to tip him, but Poe stopped her. Net had never met a guy like that, so she started having feelings for him. But she didn't realize she was already his target. After she got drunk, Poe drove Net home. In the car, she gave him her business card. Just as things were about to go further, her house security showed up. Poe unbuckled his seatbelt and slowly got out of the car. It was all part of his plan. Net was really upset when she got home. Her daughter, Nai, worried and asked what was wrong. Net didn't care and pushed her daughter away angrily. When Poe walked away, he looked back at his old house. The next day, Para calmly asked his wife, "What time did you get home last night?" Net answered, "I don't know. I didn't look at the clock." Para didn't say anything else. He just told Nai to hurry to the office and left. Net then looked at the food that Nai brought and threw it onto the floor. Their family clearly wasn't getting along at all. And that's exactly what Poe wanted. He was going to continue his revenge. When Para wanted to take a picture with Nai, Net stopped him, not caring about Nai's feelings. Even more shocking, a huge poster appeared on the big screen at the company event. Net stared at it. It was Para's ex-wife. It reminded her of how she'd treated the mother and the son, kicking them out. Ignoring everyone, she just left the event. Nai rushed after him, loudly demanding to know who designed the poster. Nai acted innocent, saying she hadn't thought about it much. Just as Net was about to blow up at Nai, Para suddenly appeared and coldly said he'd approved it. Years ago, his ex-wife was the spokesperson for the jewelry collection, and this design was popular again. But Net refused to accept this, saying seeing the person on the poster reminded her of her past as a lowly nanny. But she didn't know Poe had seen everything. He'd planned their meeting. This was just the first step in his revenge. After learning Net's taste, Poe called the number on her card, and they met again. He wanted to get close to Net to sabotage his father's company. After the meal, Poe pretended to notice that Net was the vice president of the jewelry company. When he saw the card, he humbly asked for a job. At the company, Poe saw his father's picture and looked complicated. But he didn't show his ID to the HR department. It broke company rules, but Net didn't care. She said it was her company, and she'd hired him. Later, Poe said, "Thanks for getting me the job." Net replied, "It's nothing. I didn't want you working at a bar. This way, you're closer." It was either a coincidence or fate, but right at the most crucial moment, Nai barged in. Seeing her good work interrupted, Net was totally ticked off. What surprised everyone was that Nai had met Poe before, and they had a whole bunch of interesting interactions together, all planned by Poe. His revenge plan was just getting started. The rich heiress looked at the billion-dollar diamond, but she just sneered. Then she held up a lighter, and the diamond got toasted. She obviously saw right away it was fake. Ignoring the other person's expression, Nai tossed the rock away without a second thought. She coldly said, "Someone who can fool me hasn't been born yet." Then she walked away like a boss. What she didn't expect was that the seller was a well-known local thug. He definitely wasn't going to let a little girl get away with humiliating him. Nai suddenly realized something was wrong and ran like crazy. Then, some mysterious guy pulled her into a corner. She looked up and saw a handsome stranger. Even though she'd never met him, She felt strangely safe. As they were about to escape, Po accidentally kicked over an empty flower pot. The thug heard it and gave chase. They ended up trapped in an alley. Without saying a word, the thug attacked. Po kicked him hard, then spun around with Nai, dodging a blow. But they were outnumbered, and Po was getting the worst of it. To protect Nai, he grabbed a stick and fought back. Seeing this, Nai ran off and yelled, "Officer, help!" The thug ran away. Seeing Po wasn't seriously hurt, Nai's heart settled. They went to the river. Po looked at her softly and asked, "Were you at the market looking at gemstones?" Nai replied, "Yes, I work for a jewelry company." "What about you?" Po said, "I was just sightseeing." Soon, Nai's fiancé arrived. He knew nothing about what happened. As she was about to introduce them, Po vanished without a trace. Nai felt a little let down, but she never guessed this was all Po's trap. He not only faked a random encounter, he also deliberately befriended Net. After winning her over, he successfully got a job at the company. But Nai, fiercely loyal to the company, pointed out problems with Po's hiring. She told Net, "He has no interview materials, not even ID." Net said, "Mind your own business. Remember, you owe everything to me and Para." After hearing Net's warning, Nai didn't get mad. She just quietly left the office. Nai's background wasn't simple. Even though her mother treated her badly, she always thought something was off about Po. It was all too coincidental. So, she paid close attention to him at work. Po was amazing from day one. Even the toughest customers were charmed by him. Then he flirted with Nai, saying, "Hey, it's almost lunch. Pretty Nai, wanna grab some food with me? I bet you have tons of questions." They went to a street food stall. When Nai asked about his connection to Net, Po calmly said it was all coincidence. While they were eating, Net showed up looking for Po. When she couldn't find him, she called, asking where he was. Po said he was having lunch with Nai. Net said, "I want to have lunch with you. Come back." Seeing them together, Net looked annoyed. Po smoothly said, "Nai asked me to lunch." It was clearly a lie. Net went back to the office planning to scold Nai. No one expected that Nai was Net and Para's adopted daughter. As a child, Nai had to kneel and bow to her mother for 10 years. To outsiders, she seemed like a rich heiress, but only she knew the truth. She was adopted, and her adoptive mother barely treated her like a daughter. Luckily, her adoptive father was good to her. She also remembered that Net had saved her from a terrible accident and brought her home. Nai was always grateful. But Net had become mean. Just because Nai and Po had lunch together, she blew up at Nai. She told Nai to remember her place and not eat with men casually. That was a bit much, don't you think? Para thought that was unfair and stood up for Nai. This just made Net angrier. Para didn't want to argue, so he told Nai to go rest and left. But Net wouldn't let it go. Para couldn't stand Net anymore. Since he'd kicked his ex-wife out, he didn't understand how his sweet, considerate nanny had changed into this. Para even missed his ex-wife. Then, Net shocked them both by saying, "You like her, don't you?" Nai overheard this from downstairs. Para slapped Net. It completely stunned her. It was the first time he'd ever hit her. Net then called Po for comfort. Coincidentally, Po was lost in memories of his and his mother's life after they were abandoned, the years of bullying, and his mother's death from a serious illness. Recalling those hardships, he wouldn't let those who hurt his mother get away with it. Wiping away his tears, he answered the phone. "Hello, Net." Net invited him out for drinks, and he readily agreed. They met at a bar. After a few drinks, Po said, "Wow, you look stunning tonight. You're breathtaking." Net said, "You're such a smooth talker, Po." Po then leaned in and touched Net's hair, flattering her. "Those earrings are gorgeous." Net said, "They're a new unreleased design. Hard to find another pair." She secretly took them. Po steered the conversation toward Para, unknowingly uncovering a secret. Net told Po he only favors Nai these days. Po said, "Fathers being good to their daughters is normal." Net said, "But Nai isn't our real daughter. She's adopted because..." Realizing her slip, Net quickly tried to stop herself. Po saw Net was quite drunk. He took her phone and called Para. Luckily, Nai was in his room. Hearing Po's voice, Nai sensed something was wrong. She demanded to know Po's intentions and why he let Net drink so much. Po said, "Ask your mother why she's out drinking with a man, and so drunk." Nye said. Send me her location. Don't touch Net before I get there. Not wanting her father to suspect anything, Nye said Net would be home soon. She took his phone, saying it needed charging, and told him to go to bed. She went to meet Po. After getting Net into the car, Po gave a sinister smile. The next day at work, Net's earrings were missing. A custom order from a VIP client. Missing the deadline meant a huge penalty. Net showed no remorse. Instead, she blamed her daughter. Nye admitted her carelessness in storing the earrings. Para, unaware of the truth, didn't say much, but he was concerned about the company's reputation. Nye said she would handle the compensation. She had an idea: find a replacement. As luck would have it, she ran into Net while shopping. Net wasn't nice to her. Nye, still grateful to Net for saving her, decided to take responsibility. She glanced at Po and went into the shop. Po casually asked Net, "What are you doing in such a hurry?" Net said, "The diamond earrings are gone, and she has to find replacements, or we'll owe $100 million in compensation." Po's face turned complex. He'd planned to mess with Para and Net's relationship by stealing the earrings, but he hadn't expected Nye to take the blame. Learning she was their adopted daughter softened his feelings toward her. He knew finding a replacement would be impossible. What Nye never expected was that when she went to apologize to the client, they were satisfied. Someone had already delivered a replacement, even better than the original, and the client loved it. Though the problem was solved, Nye still felt uneasy. She asked Po where he got the replacement, and he casually said, "Net told me to get it." Then he left. Net was relieved and invited him to dinner. But she had the same question as Nye. Where did Po get the replacement? Po said, "I researched the company's products, so I remembered a similar set." Net put her hand on Po's. "Name your price. Anything you want." Just then, a man entered the restaurant. Sinkhorn, Para's right-hand man. He'd been watching them, unbeknownst to Net. After Net got home, Sinkhorn said, "Let me give you a warning. Don't get too close to Po. If Para finds out, you'll face the consequences." Surprisingly, Net didn't get angry. There was clearly a secret between them. Net wondered how Sinkhorn knew. She suspected Nye. Net confronted Nye, physically attacking her and demanding to know why she'd told. Nye was innocent. She hadn't told anyone and had even helped Net cover it up. Para arrived just in time. Net wouldn't stop. Para was furious. He threw Net to the ground and told her to calm down. But Net was inconsolable and ran out. Nye ran after her but couldn't stop her. While Nye called Net to apologize, an accident happened. Net was in a car accident. Before losing consciousness, she called Po. She thought he was her most reliable person, but he didn't care if she lived or died. Nye rushed to the hospital. She'd always suspected Po's intentions with Net, so she angrily sent Po away and stayed to care for her adoptive mother. To her surprise, Po showed up at the hospital the next morning, just as Net woke up. She said she was in pain and asked if Po had stayed with her all night. He feigned concern. "I couldn't leave you." Just as Net was lost in her happy delusion, Para arrived at the hospital. Things were about to get interesting. Net quickly pulled her hand away. Facing Para's worry, she played the victim. Po watched the whole scene. As he was leaving, Para stopped him. Everyone was tense, but Po remained calm. Para asked why Po was there. Net said, "He saved me last night and brought me to the hospital." Po said he just happened to be passing by and coincidentally saved Net. Para didn't say anything else. But this incident strengthened Net's belief that Po genuinely liked her. Before she was discharged, she gave Po a luxury car. Her attitude towards Nye remained unchanged. She teased Nye daily. Para overheard their conversation, and Net fell silent. But Para said frankly, "Net, have you seen Po lately?" Net replied, "Why would I see him often?" "That's a strange question." Para said, "He saved you. I want to invite him for dinner." Both Nye and Net knew what was going on, so they made excuses to deflect Para's idea. But Para insisted and told Nye to invite Po. Later, Nye went to the shop, mentioning her father's dinner invitation to Po. Po asked, "At your house?" Nye said, "Yes, but I told him that you would not come." As she finished, a man entered the shop. Po said they were closed, telling him to come back tomorrow. But the man challenged him. "You're new here, aren't you? You don't even know who I am?" He said he was Nye's boyfriend, Dan. Po ignored him, but Dan persisted. Dan said, That's an expensive watch. Someone gave it to you, right? I bet you're using your looks to get by. Po continued to ignore him because he was clearly on a different level. Watching them leave, Po made a decision. Soon after Nai got home, she saw the housekeeper preparing something. Nai asked what she was doing, and she said, "The guest your father invited is arriving." She looked toward the door. Po, disobeying her, had shown up at their house. This dinner was going to be interesting. After many years, Po returned to the house that used to be his home. After Net enthusiastically showed him into the dining room, he noticed a picture on the wall. Seeing the happy family portrait, he remembered his deceased mother. His eyes welled up, but he quickly composed himself. Para entered the dining room and said cordially to Po, "Make yourself at home." This seemingly polite remark felt jarring to Po. As they ate, Para told Po he could visit any time and asked if the food was to his liking. Po said, "It's delicious, especially the water hyssop soup. My father used to make it for me when I was little." Para looked surprised. He said, "I used to make it for my child too." Po thought he meant him, but then Para said, "Nai loves it." Unexpectedly, Singhorn arrived to report. Net was uneasy because Singhorn knew about her and Po. He asked, "How is it that Po happened to save Net in the middle of the night?" Po calmly said, "I often work late, and I live near where the accident happened." When asked about Po's parents, he coldly said, "They're dead. It's just me." This surprised them. To give Para a good impression, Net quickly said, "Po's had a hard life. You must have suffered a lot." After dinner, Po went to the pool. As he reminisced, Nai appeared, telling him to leave. But Po didn't want to go. He approached Nai and boldly asked, "Do you like me? If you do, be brave and tell me." Nai angrily slapped him, but missed and fell into the pool. "That's an old trick. Are you trying to seduce me?" Nai said, "Help me. I have a cramp." Po, seeing her being serious, jumped in. After saving her, they stared at each other intently. Nai quickly explained, "I accidentally fell." Nai went to change, but unexpectedly, Net approached her with a strange expression. Trouble was brewing. Net grabbed Nai's hair and threw her on the bed. Because Nai was prettier, her adoptive mother wanted to kill her. Net strangled Nai, a fierce expression on her face, the room filled with screams. After satisfying her twisted desires, she coldly stared at Nai and then walked away. Surprisingly, Net acted as if nothing happened. She even urged Dan, Nai's boyfriend, to propose. Dan said he was eager, but Nai was busy with work, so their relationship wasn't progressing. Net said slyly, "You should think of a way to make her say yes." They went to a restaurant. Dan excused himself to let Nai order, planning to drug her. He gave sleeping pills to the waiter. Dan was clearly up to no good, plotting against his own girlfriend. He calmly raised his glass. Nai was unsuspecting. Her seemingly perfect boyfriend was actually a manipulative villain. Seeing Nai finish her drink, Dan smirked. Coincidentally, Dan's friend showed up, saying he needed to talk to Dan. He cleverly asked Nai to stay and eat, saying he'd borrow Dan for a bit. Nai was preoccupied with work, needing to respond to a client, but her phone died. Seeing Dan hadn't returned, she left with a bouquet of flowers. Nai arrived at the jewelry store. The drug was just kicking in. She unexpectedly ran into Po, who was about to leave work. Seeing Nai's unsteady state, Po followed her, discovering she had fainted. He gently laid her on the sofa. Looking at her sleeping peacefully, he smiled softly. He covered her with his jacket and went to his desk to check his emails. After Nai woke up, she remembered the unanswered client email. Po appeared and said, "I already took care of it." Po said, "Knowing you have a low tolerance for alcohol, you should drink less." Nai replied, "I was on a date with Dan, so I had a little. But I shouldn't have gotten this drunk. I only had one drink." Po said, "One drink and you're like this? Sounds like you were drugged." Just then, the manager said, "Para will be here soon." Hearing this, Nai rushed downstairs and saw Para, Net, and Singhorn arriving. Po suddenly appeared, saying, "You forgot this. You were really exhausted last night. Get some rest." It was clearly deliberate. Net realized the threat. Wanting to be closer to Po, she decided to fire him. Nai was shocked, even more so when Net, using her position, immediately hired Po. Net and Po met, and Para unexpectedly arrived downstairs, demanding to see Net. Nai tried to stop him, but he was insistent. Would he catch Net and Po? Po stared intently at the woman who indirectly caused his mother's death. He'd been plotting for 10 years, and he'd successfully gotten close to Net. She had no idea he was the son of the woman she'd thrown out of the house years ago. Just as they were about to get closer, the office door burst open. Para entered, asking Net, "What are you doing?" Net said, "Why are you here?" Po and I are discussing work. Po, facing his father, remained calm and left. This was all part of his plan. He wanted to use Net to get into the company's headquarters and destroy it. Using Net's power, Po was promoted to manager. His first project was to organize an exhibition with Nai. At the exhibition, Po saw a well-dressed woman looking at necklaces from another brand. Dissatisfied with the style, Po approached her, saying, "I think your company shouldn't use cheap materials to deceive customers, should you?" Po left. The woman chased after him, explaining she'd come from overseas to choose a necklace. Money was no object. Po said, "I can help you find one." The woman asked, "Is it from your company?" Po replied, "No, from a competitor. I want to help you find the perfect necklace." The woman immediately liked him. As she was leaving, a thief snatched her necklace. Po chased after him, kicking the thief several meters away. He fought bravely, but the thief pulled out a knife. Po was weakening. At the crucial moment, Nai jumped in. Protecting Nai, Po shielded her, getting cut in the process. But he didn't fall. He repeatedly kicked the thief, subduing him. The police arrived. Nai anxiously looked at Po. Using her handkerchief to bandage his wound, she scolded him gently. "You shouldn't be so reckless for a stranger," Po said. "But I couldn't just stand by. I once saw the woman I loved hurt, and I couldn't do anything." Hearing this, Nai realized Po wasn't the kind of man who played with women's feelings. The police asked them to go to the station to give statements. Nai was worried. The exhibition was starting, and they were in charge. If both of them were gone, the consequences would be severe. After the exhibition, Singhorn used this incident to fire Po. Nai immediately stepped forward, saying she was also responsible. Singhorn angrily said, "Why are you protecting him? Shouldn't you be on my side?" What they didn't know was that Para and the woman Po helped were together. She was the fiancée of an Arab prince. What role would she play in Singhorn's revenge? Find out in the next episode. On his first day in his new position, Po saved the prince's fiancée and secured a multi-billion-dollar contract for the company to provide jewelry for the royal wedding. The princess was also very pleased with Po's service, surprising everyone. At the board meeting, Para wanted to choose someone to oversee the project. Singhorn confidently stated that, as a longtime employee, he should be in charge. But Para said, "Po and Nai will handle it. I think it's a big contract, and I'm afraid they won't be able to do it." Para turned to Net for her opinion. Po glanced at Net, and she immediately said, "The company should use more young people." Singhorn looked displeased. After the meeting, Singhorn confronted Net, asking why she didn't support him. Net said, "Para made the decision. Asking me was just a formality." Singhorn's next words revealed their relationship. He said, "Everything I do is for us." Net said, "I know. Once we get rid of him and him, we can be together." That explained why Singhorn disliked Po. Unbeknownst to them, Po had long known about their affair. But Net truly liked Po. She was just using Singhorn. After Singhorn left, she called Po. "I miss you," Po said. "Not tonight. I have to work late." Po worked late with Nai. Seeing the heavy rain, Po left an umbrella for Nai and went home in the rain. Nai went downstairs to find the umbrella waiting. They started interacting more, and Nai's opinion of Po changed. While reviewing the company's budget, Po discovered discrepancies between reported and actual expenses, ultimately approved by Singhorn. Nai questioned Singhorn, who claimed ignorance. He said, "I'm loyal to the company. Do you think I'm embezzling?" Nai said, "I don't think so. That's why I want you to check." Singhorn said, "It's my secretary's fault for not checking carefully." So Nai dropped the matter. Singhorn knew it was Po's doing. He'd done it before, but never got caught. He warned Po to stay out of it. But Po ignored him. At a company meeting, Po said to Para, "Mr. Singhorn's secretary needs to double-check the prince's wedding budget calculations to avoid mistakes. Otherwise, I won't be able to hand over the project on time." Seeing Po challenge him, Singhorn tried to get rid of him. But Para called him back, asking, What's going on? Po said. The purchase price of the materials doesn't match the actual price. I suspect it's Mr. Singhorn's mistake, though probably unintentional. Para asked Singhorn to temporarily stop his work. This clearly angered Singhorn. As he was leaving work, Singhorn sent men to beat him up and threatened to fire him if he didn't quit. Po was unfazed. Years of planning had led to this moment of revenge. He would eliminate anyone who stood in his way. Little did Singhorn know that Po not only showed up for work, but also designed a new necklace, pleasing the princess. Only finishing touches at the workshop remained. Para was thrilled. A successful partnership would bring huge profits and international recognition. He decided to let Po and Nai handle the Hong Kong client. With a few more contacts, the deal would be closed. Nai suddenly noticed a scratch on the box. Singhorn arrived, saying he'd arranged security. Of course, his intentions were far from benevolent. Nai's assistant, escorted by security, delivered the goods while Po and Nai arrived earlier. Seeing that they were late, Nai waited upstairs. The assistant arrived downstairs and collided with someone pushing a cart. In the chaos, security gave the box to the assistant, and they rushed upstairs. But Po noticed something was off. He saw a similar box on the cart and chased after the person. A struggle ensued, and Po was knocked down, losing the goods. When Nai opened the box, she found it had been switched. Singhorn was smug, but the client was unhurried. Po arrived and said to Nai, "Let me check." Nai knew they were fakes, but when the client saw them, he said, "What's this?" Nai was worried, but he continued, "It's even better than I imagined. I'll buy them all." Singhorn was shocked, asking, "Are you sure you don't want to check them?" Po said, "What? Are they all fake?" Singhorn was speechless. Why would the client, knowing they were fake, buy them for a huge sum? A plastic diamond, sold for 100 million. The man knew it was fake, but bought a whole suitcase full. Surprisingly, the man was just an employee. The real buyer was Po. The suitcase of fake diamonds, stolen by Singhorn's men, was retrieved by Po. The employee didn't understand why. Po was creating chaos and then solving it, gradually earning Para's trust to infiltrate the company and destroy Para's business. Singhorn blamed his secretary. "I'm firing her immediately." Nai said, "That's not the solution. The priority is resolving the problem." Singhorn said, "Fine, let's do it your way." Then, to his secretary, "I'll deal with you after this is over." Nai was unaware of the deception, but Po saw it clearly. They went to the workshop. They only had one day. Failure meant losing all previous contracts. Nai worked with the workers until midnight, finishing before dawn. After meticulously checking everything, they headed to the airport. On the highway, the car carrying the necklace inexplicably turned around. Singhorn had bribed the driver to sabotage the delivery. Po and Nai realized something was wrong, forcing the car to stop. Po fought with the driver, throwing him to the ground. His accomplices, armed with guns, were also subdued. The plan failed, and they fled. The assistant took the suitcase, and they headed to the airport, short on time. Thinking they were safe, another unexpected event occurred. A mysterious motorcyclist appeared, scattering nails on the road, causing a flat tire. Nai was frantic. They were late. Simultaneously, a mysterious person met with the princess and delivered the necklaces. Nai received a call from her father, saying the deal was cancelled and she should return immediately. Surprisingly, the mysterious person who'd sabotaged them earlier appeared at a bar meeting Po. It was all Po's plan. He knew Singhorn would interfere, but to ensure the deal failed, he'd arranged his own people to help. His own people delivered the necklaces to the princess. News quickly broke of the prince canceling the contract, causing massive losses for the company. Para suffered a heart attack and was hospitalized. Po visited the hospital alone. Looking at his father in the hospital bed, his face showed complex emotions, and he wept. He recalled their past life. Nai entered. He composed himself, saying, "He needs rest, we shouldn't disturb him," then left. This surprised Nai. She believed Po's relationship with her adoptive mother was strange. Earlier, he'd called Para while Net was drunk, attempting to drive a wedge between them. She didn't understand his apparent concern for his ill father. Po unconcernedly said he'd only come to watch the show. As they talked, Dan arrived, mocking Po. "You're like a dog following a scent. Everywhere I go, there you are," Po said. "I warn you to watch your words." After Po left, Dan received a call, hiding in a corner. A woman's seductive voice came through, the woman from the bar. Dan said, "I'm at the hospital, visiting a friend's father. It's just a formality. I'll meet you tonight at the usual place." Unbeknownst to him, Poe was watching. Net grew bolder, meeting Sinkhorn at her home. Sinkhorn said, "Para's sick. He'll be gone soon. Then we can be together forever." As they talked, a fight erupted outside. Net saw her sister and niece, but felt only disgust. A secret existed between them, one that could cost Net everything if revealed. Net, having been taken in by a kind woman, was utterly ungrateful, feigning distress to seduce her master. She told her sister to reveal her pregnancy. Para was overjoyed, unaware of Net's trap. Then she plotted against his wife. Seeing Para approach, she slowly walked towards the stairs and scolded her employer. Then she grabbed the woman's hand, pulling her towards her, feigning victimhood and rolling down the stairs. When Para rushed over, she played the victim. At the hospital, she had her sister falsify the test results, telling Para she'd miscarried. They were both pleased that Para believed them. Following Net's plan, Poe and his mother were evicted. But once she became a wealthy madam, her true nature emerged. She was easily angered and prone to arguments over trifles. Para regretted his actions, but Net caused a serious accident, injuring a child whose parents had died. To cover it up, Net approached the child's aunt, claiming she and her husband wanted to adopt the child. She told the child, "I love children and will take good care of you, better than your parents." The aunt emphasized Net's bravery in rescuing the child. Unbeknownst to the child, the aunt had been paid by Net to fabricate the story. The aunt then left the country. That child was Nye, the reason for Net's hatred. Nye, unaware of the truth, remained grateful to them. While her father was ill, Nye worked during the day and cared for him at night. He eventually recovered. But upon his discharge, Net started scheming. Sinkhorn told Para, "Your wife has arranged a private nurse for you at home." Net easily arranged for her sister and niece to move in, paying them top wages. Net's sister immediately antagonized Nye. Throwing away a dinner, Nye prepared for their father, claiming the nurse's approval was needed. Net didn't object and had her niece, Gina, work at the company. Sinkhorn approached Net, saying, "I know you need money. Help me with something, and the reward will be substantial." Nye poured her energy into her work to prove herself. To fulfill her adoptive father's expectations, she secured a promising contract. She and Poe reported to Para, but he asked them to wait as Sinkhorn had a project to present. After hearing Sinkhorn's presentation, they realized it was identical to theirs, but with a lower budget. Para chose Sinkhorn. Poe, seeing Nye's dejection, argued, "How can you be sure he'll do better?" Para said, "At least he hasn't caused major losses like you two." He clearly remembered the royal necklace incident. Going past Gina's room, Nye overheard a shocking truth. Gina was telling her mother, "The reason Mr. Sinkhorn's plan was approved is because I gave him the documents." Nye realized Gina had stolen her plans. She dragged Gina to tell her father. As they argued, Net arrived yelling, "What's going on?" Nye said, "She stole my plans and gave them to Sinkhorn. I have to tell Dad." Net's sister shouted, "It's a misunderstanding." Seeing Net hesitate, she threatened, "Do you believe your niece or your adopted daughter?" Net, feeling pressured, stopped her daughter. "Stop it, or I'll slap you in front of them. Get out." Nye was heartbroken, unable to comprehend why her adoptive mother, who'd risked her life to save her, had changed. Net found Gina, admitting she knew Nye was telling the truth, and warned her to stay away from Sinkhorn. Gina felt resentful. That night she went to a bar and was apprehended by police. Drugs were found on her. Her sister rushed to Net, asking her to save Gina. Net desperately sought help, but no one cared. Net sought out Poe, complaining about her family's troubles. Poe offered his help, saying things Net found deeply touching. Net asked, "How can you help?" Poe replied, "It's not just help, you are the person I like most, your problems are my problems." But Poe's help was to entangle Net further in this game of love. Understanding the situation, Poe went to the bar manager, but only got a partial security footage. As an experienced businessman, he understood and paid to see the full video. The drug wasn't Gina's, a woman had planted it knowing the police would be checking. Surprisingly, that woman was with Dan, Nye's boyfriend. Things were about to get interesting. Dan had always opposed Poe, so he brought Nai to the police station. He'd freed Gina and let Nai see her boyfriend with another woman. 2 birds with 1 stone. Po had developed feelings for Nai over time. Discovering Dan's true nature, she unexpectedly saw them together and was heartbroken. Dan tried to explain it was a misunderstanding, but Nai slapped him. Dan didn't want to lose Nai and confronted Po at the company. Po asked, "Do you think she cares about you now?" Dan said, "What's it to you?" Po said, "You think you can get away with those disgusting things?" Dan angrily grabbed Po's collar, but Po remained unconcerned. Nai appeared, coldly telling Dan their relationship was over, and she wouldn't see him again. Po was secretly pleased, but Dan wasn't giving up. He waited for Nai at the parking lot, trying to reconcile. Nai refused, but Dan, drunk, embraced her. Po intervened and pulled Dan away. They fought, and Nai separated them. Nai sadly looked at Po. "I'm sorry, you're hurt because of me," Po said. "It's okay," a simple phrase that deeply moved Nai. They both had feelings for each other, but things weren't over. An accident occurred at Para's mine. Workers were demanding compensation. The company left Nai to handle it alone, clearly a setup. Nai faced angry workers throwing eggs. Po bravely protected her, which deeply moved Nai. Security intervened, but Nai insisted on explaining. Po held her back, advising her to wait until the investigation concluded. But Nai, wanting to uphold her adoptive father's trust, decided to address it. She announced a board meeting the next day to discuss compensation and persuade the workers to leave. Nai didn't understand Singhorn's explanation that the accident was due to a malfunctioning elevator in a newly installed elevator. Nai decided to investigate the mine, but Singhorn and Net blocked her, even taking all the company vehicles. This only fueled her suspicion. Po suggested they go to the mine, but their car got a flat tire halfway there, the same location where Nai's family had their accident. Nai, still young then, only had fragmented memories, unsure of the cause. She told Po, "If my adoptive mother hadn't saved me, I would have died there." Po understood why Nai respected her adoptive parents. The next morning, they continued, but were again blocked. Singhorn's plan. He didn't want Nai at the mine because he'd been embezzling company funds and defrauding compensation from injured workers. Nai stated, "I'm investigating to ensure everyone's safety. The company will take responsibility for medical expenses." The workers allowed them entry, but Po noticed something was amiss. The mine yielded no clues, only documents Singhorn had left behind. Po noticed something was off with the worker who'd led them. He followed him to the parking lot. Po said, "You're rich. The mine is closed. Where did you get money for this car?" The man said, "What's it to you?" Po said, "I just want to know who paid you off." The man fled, Po in pursuit. But an accident happened. The series of events caused significant losses, impacting future contracts. Losing mining rights meant Para's company would lose competitiveness and face bankruptcy. Nai was distraught. Net, unconcerned, said, "Go see Dan, sweet-talk him, his father can help." Nai naively believed Dan could help, but he tricked her, making unreasonable demands. Dan said, "We need to talk privately. It's not convenient here." For the company, she agreed. Po was watching, making a decision he'd never made before. To repay her adoptive father, Nai was willing to sacrifice herself, but ultimately resisted Dan's advances. She exited the elevator, finding Po waiting. He comforted her, scolding her. "Dan can't help. Why resort to this?" Nai's words surprised him. She had no other choice. Losing mining rights meant bankruptcy. She couldn't let that happen. Po knew Singhorn was behind it. This was his best chance for revenge. Using his Hong Kong company, he could easily seize the mining rights, destroying Para's company. Thinking this through, he approached the mine owner. The owner knew Po's Hong Kong company was powerful, but claimed he wanted to lease it to someone else. Po knew this was a tactic to drive up the price. Po calmly said, "I know you're planning to invest in Hong Kong, but lack backing from a major company. I can help." The man agreed. "In exchange for leasing the mine?" Po said. "Yes, but continue the contract with Para's company." Po's associates didn't understand. They were so close to destroying Para's company, they couldn't understand his decision. Po himself felt conflicted. His purpose was revenge. But seeing Nai's plight, he couldn't help but protect her. He secretly resolved everything, but everyone believed Dan had helped. Dan even met Para, who said, Thank you to Dan and his father for your help. Dan was confused. Para mentioned the mine issue. Dan said, "It was nothing. I'd do anything for Nai." He'd also come to discuss their engagement. Para was thrilled, unaware of Nai's feelings. Nai wanted nothing to do with Dan. Dan said, "I helped you solve the contract issue, basically saving the company." Seeing Nai still hesitant, he threatened to ruin the company. Nai, unaware of the truth, had no choice but to agree to marry him. The next day, Dan announced their engagement to Po and everyone at the company. Many didn't know Po had handled the mine issue. Po left. Dan mocked him. "I need a favor. I haven't found a groomsman yet. It suits a poor guy like you." Po left without a word. Nai thanked Po for his help, explaining the mine issue was why she was marrying Dan. Po coldly said, "My help is nothing compared to your boyfriend's. Thank him. I won't interfere anymore." Nai felt guilty, unaware of the larger conspiracy. Nai had never felt her adoptive mother's love. As an adult, she was forced to marry a scoundrel because his father was a powerful official. During the engagement ceremony, Dan's mother received documents proving Nai was adopted, having no blood relation to Para. She was furious, refusing to let her son marry someone without status. Net watched, gleeful. Para sensed something was amiss and asked Net if she was involved. She denied it, blaming Para for not marrying her sooner, a long-held resentment. She'd orchestrated Nai's engagement and revealed her adoption to pressure Para into marrying her, securing a share of his assets. But Para still remembered his ex-wife and son. He asked Singhorn to find his ex-wife. Singhorn said he'd searched extensively but had no leads. Para insisted, "Dead or alive, I need to find her." Unexpectedly, Singhorn found a lead. Detectives' documents revealed a Hong Kong businessman had taken Para's wife and son 10 years prior. The wife later died of illness, and the son's whereabouts were unknown. Singhorn told the detective to continue investigating secretly and not tell anyone, clearly planning something. He then reported to Para. They went to Hong Kong 10 years ago and were lost at sea. Both are dead. Para was devastated, feeling utterly alone. Singhorn left, smiling triumphantly. He ran into Nai. He told her, "Don't disturb Para's rest," making her uneasy, thinking her actions had upset her father. She didn't want to marry Dan, so canceling the wedding wasn't a problem. She decided not to bother her father. The next day, she couldn't find him in his room. Para, having once abandoned his wife and son for a housekeeper, now missed his ex-wife in his old age. Looking at a family photo, he regretted his actions, wishing he could go back in time. He sat there all day. Unable to find her father, Nai anxiously called Po. They went to his old home and found Para. Seeing Nai and Po, Para was surprised but didn't say much. Nai thought her actions had caused his sadness. But Para said, "I was just remembering sad things." Po noticed something was amiss and urged Para to leave. As they were escaping, masked men burst in and fired shots. Po tackled one to the ground, others attacked but were also subdued. While checking on Para, Po was hit from behind and knocked unconscious. In a desperate move, Para fired his gun. After driving them away, they went to the hospital. Po was unharmed. Para was grateful. "You saved me, and I'll repay you." Net noticed something was off. Only she and Nai knew Para's whereabouts, but she'd mentioned it to Singhorn. She realized Singhorn was involved. She feigned distress, telling Para, "You're the most important person in my life. If anything happens to you, I don't know how I'll live." After the incident, Para decided to marry Net to resolve Nai's wedding. He called a lawyer and Dan's parents. With everyone present, he registered the marriage and had Nai sign. With both parents' consent, Nai would become their legal daughter and heir. The lawyer said, "Congratulations, Nai. You're now part of this family." Dan's parents then mentioned the engagement. Para, still fond of Dan, didn't object. His health improved, so he decided to return to managing the company. Singhorn panicked, having orchestrated everything to take over the company. The next day, reporters swarmed Para at the office. Singhorn, a longtime employee, was deeply in debt. To repay it, he betrayed Para. He leaked company secrets, including the failed deal with the princess and the workers' injuries. He then tipped off reporters to spread the news, aiming to decrease the company's value and seize it during the chaos. But Po noticed inconsistencies. He got Para into an elevator while blocking the reporters. Seeing his plan fail, Sinkhorn grabbed Po, warning him to stay out of it. Po scoffed. "Who do you think you are, telling me what to do?" And left. Sinkhorn decided to eliminate Po. He suggested Para sell some shares to stabilize the company and attract outside investment. He claimed to know who leaked the secrets. Para called Po, saying, "I won't let you destroy this company. Who are you exactly?" Po was shocked. He'd saved Para and solved numerous problems. Why this sudden change? He soon realized it was Sinkhorn's manipulation. Sinkhorn had fabricated evidence, framing Po as the leaker. Para refused to listen, devastating Po. The police arrived to arrest Po. His hatred for Para intensified. A man entered, Po's adoptive uncle, who had taken him and his mother to Hong Kong and was the chairman of a prominent jewelry company. He'd raised Po after his mother's death and supported his revenge. Learning of Po's predicament, he flew to Thailand. After bailing Po out, they launched their counterattack. They approached Sinkhorn, knowing he was desperate for money. If they could convince Para to sell his shares, they'd make Sinkhorn CEO once they acquired the company. Sinkhorn fell for it. Para agreed to sell his shares. Sinkhorn met Mr. Ken to confirm. "Everything's settled, right?" Ken said. "I'll choose an experienced person to replace me. Don't worry, I'll announce it today." Sinkhorn thought victory was his, but Ken chose Po, the man he'd fired. This was the start of Po's revenge. The boy, abandoned by his wealthy father, returned to buy shares, saving the company from collapse. But his actions weren't driven by familial affection, but by deep hatred. He wanted those who hurt his mother to pay. Po becoming chairman was a nightmare for everyone. First, he demoted Para from chairman to sales consultant, humiliating him in front of the directors. Then, he coldly told Sinkhorn to hand over all his projects, uncaring about Sinkhorn's displeasure. He prepared a special gift for him. Surprisingly, Po demoted Nai to his secretary. After the meeting, Sinkhorn went to the parking lot, unaware of the danger. A man punched him, causing him to bleed. He looked for help, but Po was in the car. Sinkhorn was desperate. Po nodded, and his men poured drinks on Sinkhorn's head. A familiar humiliation Sinkhorn had inflicted on Po. Now it was payback. Po left, unconcerned with Sinkhorn's fate. Po then encountered Net at the company. He grabbed her, saying, "Net, don't pretend you don't see me." Net replied, "How can I casually talk to the chairman?" Po said, "To me, you're still the same. Why did you lie to me? Money is nothing, it's you who matters." He was manipulating her, knowing she'd still be useful. His next target was Nai. He spilled coffee on the table, instructing Nai to clean it. Then, he asked her to prepare a new document. Nai knew he was making things difficult, but obeyed her father's instructions to endure. Para had told Nai to be patient to gain control of the company. "Back in Po's office," he said. "Making coffee takes that long? Where's my document?" Nai said, "I'll do it now." "No need, I'm out of time." Po then said, "I need to inspect a construction site and want you to come with me." A wealthy heiress now holding an umbrella for her former subordinate was frustrating for Nai, but she endured. An argument nearby caught her attention. It was her long-lost brother. After their parents died, she was adopted by Para, while her brother lived with their aunt. Seeing him, Nai was happy, but he coldly ignored her and left. He knew a secret and disliked her for it. After inspecting the site, Po asked Nai to accompany him to meet an important client. She agreed. Po valued this partnership. At dinner, he highlighted that Nai designed the product. The client was pleased, but then acted disrespectfully towards Nai. She stood up, accidentally spilling water on the client. Po asked, "What are you doing?" Then, apologizing, he said to the client, "Nai's a bit sensitive." Nai was upset, but Po calmly gave her his jacket, telling her to handle it. She didn't understand his behavior. Before, he'd helped her when she was bullied. Now, he was hostile. Po was self-punishing. He resented Para's stubbornness in believing Sinkhorn over him. He wanted revenge. Everything that happened was orchestrated by him. After changing, the man approached Nai, saying, "Understand this. If you don't sign the contract, the consequences will be severe, and your chairman will be furious." He smirked. Po, observing from afar, made a bold move. He smashed a beer bottle over the client's head. The client threatened revenge. Po replied, "Old man, you think I'm scared?" He took Nai away. Nai scolded him for his impulsive actions, causing significant losses. Po was unconcerned, pulling her into his arms. The CEO assaulted a major client, losing a huge contract. The next day, Nai requested a leave of absence. Po was furious. He'd just saved her, and now she wanted to leave. He refused, saying, "Fine, you can leave, but I'll make Para my new secretary. I will make him pour tea, clean, etc." Hearing this, Nai withdrew her resignation. Po went to the employee lounge and encountered Dan. Dan arrogantly taunted Po. "I know you like Nai, but after I'm done with her, she's yours." Po lost his temper and beat Dan up. Nai rushed in, asking why he'd hit her boyfriend. Po coldly stared, refusing to explain. Nai didn't know he'd done it for her. Dan blamed Po for all the trouble and demanded Nai quit, but she refused. He sought revenge, confronting Po. "I don't care how you got to be chairman. To me, you're just a nobody." He ordered his men to restrain Po. Po remained fearless. Seeing his men hesitate, Dan noticed Po's men were armed, saying, "Let's see who dares touch my boss." Dan was terrified. Po was clearly superior. Po said Dan needed more exercise and ordered his men to help him. Then he left. The next day, Po called Nai, wanting to restart a 5-year-old project. Nai said Para had deemed it unprofitable. Po said, "That's why I need to check. Let's see how wrong your father was." Po was planning his revenge for his deceased mother, but he found himself attracted to the innocent Nai. He wouldn't abandon his revenge. After taking over his father's company, he restarted the 5-year-old project, taking Nai along to survey the area, a thinly veiled attempt at fostering feelings. But the company employees also wanted to join. Po asked Nai to ride with him, but she refused. He didn't get angry, smiling instead. He wouldn't give up easily. They arrived at the survey site, a remote village with rumored underground mines. Po's men had already investigated and found a clue. Po decided to check the river himself. He took off his shirt and found gold flakes. His choice had been right. Nai noticed something unusual. She saw a familiar-looking worker, panning for gold. As she approached, she injured her foot. Po tended to her and carried her back. The next day, his subordinates reported more gold in the forest. Po decided to go to the mine, unaware of the impending danger. Sinkhorn, after the previous beating, had hired assassins to follow Po to the village. Coincidentally, the worker Nai had seen was her brother, and Suti witnessed the encounter. The assassins questioned villagers and found Po. They opened fire. Po and Nai hid, but the assassins pursued them relentlessly. Po apologetically told Nai, "I shouldn't have brought you here. You go, I'll distract them." Nai refused to leave him, but he urged her to go. Seeing her safe, he used a log to knock down one assassin, but was then ambushed and knocked unconscious. As an assassin aimed his gun, Nai returned, unwilling to abandon him. They escaped the assassins and spent the night in the forest. Seeing a fire, Nai's memories surfaced. They were siblings, but their fates diverged. After their parents' accident, Nai was adopted by a wealthy family, becoming an heiress. Suti struggled alone. Their aunt revealed the truth before she died. Net, drunk, had caused the accident, adopting Nai to cover it up. Suti deeply resented Net and had been estranged from Nai. He hadn't told Nai, but he found out someone wanted to harm her and searched all night before finding them. Nai hugged him, relieved. Po asked who Suti was. Nai said he was her brother. Suti said, "It doesn't matter. I'm here to save you." He led them to safety. Assassins appeared again. Nai pushed Po out of the way. Police arrived, forcing the assassins to flee. Po then approached the village headman to discuss mining investment. The headman was hesitant. Nai explained the company's good intentions, promising to adhere to regulations and bring income to the villagers. The headman agreed, and they signed a contract. Nai was shocked when Po announced he'd invest in this project, and the first step would be to evict the villagers, contrary to their agreement. Nai confronted him, accusing him of caring only about profit. Po said, "I'm running a business, not a charity. What about your brother? What did he say before he left? You shouldn't be involved with him." Nai suspected Po was deliberately trying to get rid of her brother, but Po, as usual, didn't explain. Another misunderstanding arose. Po had actually arranged housing for the villagers, knowing they were in danger near the mine. He also met Nai's brother, offering him a job so he could see his sister. But Suti refused. Po kept this a secret to instill fear. To achieve his revenge, he had to be worse than his enemy. Po announced the project at a board meeting, winning approval. Singhorn appeared thoughtful, plotting against Po. The CEO secured a multi-billion-dollar contract, but was now facing the envy of a scheming employee. Singhorn approached Para, sowing discord, claiming Po used his work to meet Nai. Para became suspicious. Para asked Singhorn to bring a diamond. He wanted a ring designed, specifically by Po. When Nai asked about the project, Para only gave a vague answer. He called it a very important client. He asked her to ask Po if he'd accept the commission. Po was pleased, believing Para was acknowledging his skills, and readily agreed. But this was his biggest mistake. The ring was soon finished, stylish and luxurious. Po looked at Nai, saying, "My inspiration comes from this beautiful girl. I hope to put this ring on your finger and make you the happiest person." Para coldly interrupted, saying the client would collect the ring soon. Po and Nai were shocked to discover the client was Dan. Po was furious, and Nai was kept in the dark. She dragged Dan outside and yelled, saying she'd never agreed to marry him. Dan calmly replied it was all Mr. Para's plan. Both families had already set a wedding date. Mr. Para then confronted Po, saying, "Don't think I don't know what you're up to with my daughter. As long as I'm here, it's never going to happen." Po was enraged by his father's cruelty. If everyone was against him, he would make them all pay. He decided to fight back and would unleash his full wrath. Meanwhile, Singhorn had been investigating him and found some clues. He discovered Mr. Ken had no children, and a private investigator revealed that Mr. Ken had studied in Thailand, in the same class as Po's mother. This made Singhorn suspicious, and he had a bad feeling. He sent someone to Po's house to get a hair sample, then took it to the hospital for a DNA test with Mr. Para. But the guy who got the results had an accident before he could tell Singhorn. Coincidentally, Nai was passing by and took the injured man to the hospital. The next day, she returned, unaware he'd woken up. She saw his bag and, out of curiosity, opened it. She found the shocking DNA test results. Her father and Po. She was stunned. The man left the hospital quickly and gave the results to Singhorn, who immediately called Net, who just said goodbye to Po. Singhorn told Net that Po was Mr. Para's long-lost son. Net was terrified. Looking at Po, she couldn't believe it. She calmed down and told Singhorn nobody could know. To secure Mr. Para's inheritance, they made a crazy decision to kill Po. Net loved a man 10 years younger, Mr. Para's son, whom she'd previously kicked out. Knowing the truth, she was worried, not because she loved Po, but because he might stop her from inheriting her wealthy husband's fortune. She decided to get rid of him. She pretended she didn't know, saying she had something important to tell Po. They arranged to meet, but Po was unaware of the danger. He arrived at the meeting place. Net texted that she couldn't make it. A hitman watched him from afar, raising his gun. Just as he was about to shoot, a car pulled up in front of Po. Po rushed over to check. He opened the car door and saw the girl he'd secretly loved. After taking Nai to get her wound treated, he asked why she'd followed him and risked her life to save him. She said she'd followed him to learn more about him after learning his true identity. When she saw him in danger, she acted without thinking, not wanting him to get hurt. But she was getting married to Dan, so she had to hide her feelings. She said it was a coincidence that she was getting married to someone else, then left. She'd just gotten home when her adoptive mother learned the plan had failed. She pretended to care about Nai's wound, which surprised Nai. As Net went upstairs, Nai decided to tell her that Po was her father's son. She didn't know who to tell. Net told Nai not to tell Mr. Para. Nai became more suspicious of Net's strong reaction. Net quickly pretended to care, saying Mr. Para and Po wasn't close, and his heart was weak. He couldn't handle it. She pretended to be heartbroken, saying she'd kept them apart for 10 years. It was her fault. Nai comforted her, saying it wasn't her fault. Nai suggested waiting until after her wedding, and then Net could tell her father. Nai didn't know she'd been tricked again. At the same time, Mr. Ken found Po and said they now controlled the company, fulfilling Po's mother's wish. For safety, he hoped Po would return to Hong Kong soon. But Po said, besides the company, he needed his mother's necklaces. Ken said, "You think I can't help you get them back? I knew your mother well. She gave up everything to go to Hong Kong, because your happiness was most important to her. Po decided to end it all and start a new life in Hong Kong. Po, abandoned by his wealthy father as a child, returned years later for revenge. After taking the company, he willingly gave up the CEO position, saying Mr. Para could run it. He was going back to Hong Kong. Everyone was shocked. Even Mr. Para, a seasoned businessman, couldn't understand. He didn't know the man he hated was his son. Net and Singhorn remained suspicious, unconvinced Po would give up the company. They decided to kill him. Singhorn found the hitman. They planned the attack. The hitman urged Mr. Para to buy Po's shares, but Po refused, saying, "You want to make it all yours? These aren't vegetables from the market. You can't just buy them." Mr. Para was furious. Po reminded him, "I know this company never really belonged to you." This unsettled Mr. Para, because the company wasn't rightfully his. His ex-wife had given him the shares when she was pregnant, allowing him to become CEO. Just as he was about to ask more, Singhorn, fearing Po would reveal his identity, made an excuse to take Mr. Para away. But Singhorn's goal was to get Po's license plate for the hitman. Po was unaware of this. As he prepared to leave Thailand, he got a call from Uncle Ken. His car had broken down. Po told his driver to pick him up while he dealt with other things. That day was Nai's wedding. Po sat in his room, looking at the handkerchief Nai had used to bandage his wound. He asked a friend to go to the wedding and give it to Nai. Seeing the carefully preserved handkerchief, Nai remembered their moments together. She realized she loved Po and called him, confessing she didn't want to marry Dan. She loved him. Po was surprised. The hitman arrived. Because Po had switched cars with Uncle Ken, the hitman mistook Uncle Ken for Po. A shot rang out. The uncle who'd cared for him for 10 years was dead. The hitman then aimed at Po. Po went crazy, fighting back and knocking the hitman down. He took off the hitman's helmet, recognizing him as the man who'd been with Mr. Para when he'd visited Po. Po realized it was Mr. Para's plan and decided to get revenge. His adopted daughter was forced to marry a wealthy, high-ranking official. To repay her adoptive parents, she walked down the aisle with a man she didn't love. Halfway through the ceremony, Po burst in, covered in blood. Everyone was shocked. Nai lifted her veil. Po glared at Mr. Para, gun in hand, demanding to know why he'd tried to kill him after Po had given him the company. As he was about to shoot, Nai cried out, "You can't kill your father." She was about to reveal Po's identity when the police arrived. Po grabbed Nai and they ran. Seeing Po's wounds in the car, Nai asked what happened. Po knew it was Mr. Para's plot. They arrived at a seaside villa. He woke her with cold water and locked her inside, then called his assistant. "Things are bad. Someone is framing me for Ken's murder and kidnapping Nai. It's Mr. Para. He tried to kill me." Nai overheard everything. She couldn't believe her father was like that. She bravely climbed out the window. Po heard the noise and found Nai gone. The villa was isolated, surrounded by the ocean. He didn't think she could escape. He quickly caught her, tied her to the boat's railing, and left her there. He thought Mr. Para loved Nai most, so this was his revenge. He didn't notice the heavy rain starting. When he returned, Nai had fainted from exhaustion. He rushed her home and cared for her all night. She murmured Po's name in her sleep. He was surprised she felt so strongly about him. Singhorn's hitmen arrived. They fled, but Nai was too weak from the rain to run far. She urged him to leave. They wouldn't spare him. "What about you?" "I'll be fine. They won't hurt me." The hitman captured Nai, but she became the bait. It was Net's plan. Mr. Para was her next target. Net put poison in his drink and watched him finish it, smiling triumphantly. It was a slow-acting poison that would gradually weaken his organs. A visitor interrupted her plan. He gave Mr. Para documents proving Po's identity. Documents Uncle Ken had given his assistant before his death, with instructions to show Mr. Para the truth. Learning Po was his son, Mr. Para felt immense guilt. He immediately wrote a will, leaving everything to Po. He was interrupted by a noise and saw a horrifying scene. He was enlightened, but knocked down by Singhorn. They no longer hid their intentions. Mr. Para learned his most trusted person hated him most. With the plan exposed, Net acted swiftly. She poisoned a fruit juice and had her sister take it to Mr. Para. One sip, and he'd be gone. She also sent the hitman to find Po. Killing them both would let her take everything. But her hitman failed again. Po ambushed them, quickly taking down both assassins. The experience strengthened his bond with Nai. Nai persuaded Po to return. Nai then called home, worried because she couldn't reach her father. The housekeeper said Mr. Para was injured and seriously ill. Worried, they rushed home. Net called the police. Seeing Po and Nai arrive, Net pretended to care, asking if Nai was safe. She signaled Sinkhorn, who told the police Po was the killer. The bribed police immediately considered Po a suspect. Then the housekeeper said Mr. Para wanted to see Po alone, terrifying Net. Finally, Mr. Para saw the son he'd cast out 10 years ago. Po said he'd come to learn about Uncle Ken's death. Mr. Para claimed ignorance. Po said, "You expect me to believe a selfish man like you?" Mr. Para admitted, "Yes, son, I've been selfish. I'm truly sorry to you and your mother." Po had waited 10 years for that apology. Father and son reconciled. Mr. Para said he had something important to tell him. Unbeknownst to him, he drank the poison juice. He collapsed. Everyone rushed in. Net looked smug. Mr. Para died. Po was arrested as a suspect in Uncle Ken's death. Net and Sinkhorn taunted him. "Smart, huh? You're the biggest fool. We'll send you to join your father and uncle." Po vowed revenge. At Mr. Para's funeral, Net pretended to grieve, saying she'd run the company. A car arrived, attracting Net's attention. She was stunned to see Po get out. Po had secretly told a friend, who retrieved the car's dashcam footage showing Uncle Ken's murder, proving Po's innocence. The police released Po. He confronted Net, coldly vowing to take back everything. Terrified, she went home and pretended to grieve. It was her ploy. After Nai fell asleep, she planted a forged will in Mr. Para's safe. She thought Po would come to discuss the inheritance. The next day, Po arrived with a lawyer, but Net was calm. She'd arranged for a lawyer to announce the will, which left everything to her. She called Nai. "Nai, you know where the will is, right?" Nai found the will, and the lawyer announced Net was the sole inheritor. Po couldn't believe his father would do that, but he lacked proof. Net got what she wanted. Nai, no longer useful, was cast aside. "Now everything's mine, including this house too. You're useless. In fact, I hate you the most. Get out of my sight." After dealing with Nai, Net targeted Sinkhorn. She tricked him into meeting her and stabbed him with a poison needle. He asked, "Why?" "I only used you, Sinkhorn. I don't need you anymore." But Po saw everything. He saved Sinkhorn and took him to the hospital. Then, they teamed up against Net. Po contacted Nai's brother, asking him to reveal the truth about the accident. Sudhi found Nai, saying, "You didn't know. Net caused the accident. She raised you to hide the truth. And you risked your life for her." After preparing everything, Po decided to get revenge on Net. Net was oblivious, happily giving interviews. First, Sinkhorn walked in, confirming Net was behind Ken and Mr. Para's deaths. Then Nai revealed the truth about the accident. Cornered, Net wanted everyone to die. She aimed her gun at Nai, but Po saved Nai. Sinkhorn shot Net. She survived, but faced prison. Later, Po visited her. She had become insane. But it wasn't over. Dan was accused of illegal dealings by Nai. Nai and her brother reconciled. Po gave Nai the villa and his father's necklaces. But Nai confessed her love for Po, only to learn he was leaving. Po had cancer and needed risky surgery. He didn't want Nai to suffer, so he chose to leave her. Nai found out and said she'd face anything with him. Surgery day came. Nai watched him from afar. A year later, Nai visited her father's grave during a heavy downpour. A familiar figure appeared. It was Po. The surgery was successful, and after a year of recovery, he was well. They smiled at each other. You could say that those who loved each other finally found their way back together. This is the end of the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos. Goodbye, and until next time.